We are watching Bitcoin's worst case scenario play out on this chart right now. It is something I gave you a stern warning about on yesterday's live stream. So shout out to those of you that are subscribed to this YouTube channel. What we've seen is Bitcoin getting above $100,000 with this yellow line right here. But then unfortunately not able to hold it and coming all the way back down to $92,000 here. This is actually a really, really good back test though, because we came off a very strong zone of support, at least, relative to what we have in this market, because we don't have any strong support levels that we've developed yet. And so, the fact that Bitcoin has managed to recover back into this equilibrium is good news, but it does tell us that this was a liquidity grab. And one of the big things that we saw was a lot of liquidations, right? A lot of people going long on Bitcoin above 100K and then long on altcoins as well, comparatively, because they've also done quite well. And obviously a lot of those gains now being given back. And so a lot of liquidity hunt kind of action happening up top over here. And that, as somebody who's been trading these markets for 7 years and as somebody who's kind of watched this space evolve, that's made me concerned about the possibility of further liquidity hunts, okay? Because if you're in an environment where you get one liquidity hunt, and especially if you get it to the top side like this, I think it's actually overwhelmingly likely that we get another one to the downside and that we probably just end up kind of trading sideways. So that's especially how Bitcoin would have behaved if we kind of take it back to, the price action that happened earlier this year. You get that top over here and then you sweep that low, right? We had this kind of really, really clear sideways range. You sweep the high, sweep the low. In this case, we didn't quite sweep the high ever again until we broke the all-time high, but we did keep on sweeping the low. And so these kind of liquidity hunts are the kind of, typical body language of Bitcoin's price action that we've been seeing for a very long time. That doesn't have to keep happening now because we're in a zone of much higher volatility. There's much more liquidity now, right? So we don't necessarily need to keep on doing that, but I wouldn't place my bets against it. I don't think that we're out of the woods from that particular perspective. And then if we do just kind of take a look at what has happened here, above that $100,000 price level, Bitcoin managed to get itself above by about 4%. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to take what I get. I think that's actually pretty decent. I think it's pretty reasonable for Bitcoin to get about 4% above. Obviously, you really want to see the back test being successful, and this one hasn't quite worked out yet. You also want to see a daily candle that doesn't look so ugly like this one. Obviously, this daily candle is literally closing in the next 19 minutes, and that's definitely not good news if you are anticipating Bitcoin doing well for the longer term kind of chart here, because if you're seeing a daily candle that looks this weak, you're probably going to be expecting some sort of reversal type price action, especially if it's coming in at such an important psychological zone of resistance. But I'll tell you what, the rest of the market doesn't seem concerned about this. All of this shit happened, and then Bitcoin's just lost its dominance, and so basically that means a bunch of money went back into total 3, into everything except for Bitcoin and probably except for Ethereum. But actually, let's take a look at total 2. And see, yeah, it's holding pretty steady here. I think compared to Bitcoin, it's still very much in its range. Bitcoin's still outperforming it, but, relative to what Bitcoin just did here, altcoins are holding pretty well. And that's going to tell you a little bit about sentiment in the market, right? If altcoins are holding well at a time like this right now, then that might actually give you an indication that altcoins are not in a particularly bad place at the moment, and therefore market sentiment isn't in a bad place at the moment. And that's absolutely great for those of you that want to trade these coins, because you're going to get a ton of free cash when you get signed up and started trading using these links down below. Bybit and Blowfin are two of the best exchanges in the game. There's no doubt about it. And they are giving you tons of free cash, literally just, because they make so much money being exchanges. They're giving you more back for free, basically, to win your business. All you've got to do is deposit and start trading, and they're going to give you thousands on Blowfin here. Super aggressive offers with, a Tesla Model 3 that you can win for free based on your trading volumes as well. So super cool. Well worth checking out if you're not from a restricted region. But bringing it back to the video here, another big thing that I do have to make you aware of is the 4-hour Ichimoku cloud. We bounced off it beautifully to set that brand new all-time high yesterday, and that did result in the $104,000 Bitcoin price. We've now fallen back into it and successfully found support again. So I don't know how much more support it's going to be offering. Clearly, this 4-hour Ichimoku cloud has started to close up. It still exists in this $97,000 price zone, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it. This cloud has served its purpose very well for 1, 2 phenomenal, 3 bounces here so far, and I'm not going to expect too much more, especially as this cloud is continuing to close off. But that doesn't matter, because on the daily time frame, all of the momentum has literally just caught up to the market. It's just hit the market right here. And so from this perspective, if you're a little bit more longer term, if you like to take a kind of step back, analyze these things, from a little bit more of a kind of calm place, which is basically what I do. That's pretty much entirely what this YouTube channel is. That's why you come here as well. So this is probably going to be right up your alley. Well, then actually, this is going to be something that really excites you. It's going to be something that really makes you feel quite positive about the market, because I think the fact that Bitcoin has managed to just get itself to find some support on this momentum indicator here is actually, I think it's quite a big deal. Obviously the biggest risk, and something that I really have to make you guys acutely aware of right now, is that now that Bitcoin has, set this horrible wick up here, showing a huge rejection above 100K, that's gonna, really, scare a lot of people, from that $100,000 price zone, right? I mean, we could definitely recover back above it, and it's worth noting, by the way, I really want to bring this to your attention before it gets, too deep into the video, that, we've seen this play out before in very, very similar ways, and it's really nothing to be concerned about. I mean, I probably should have started with that, but, to me, it's kind of obvious, but here we go anyway. I want to show you this, because I think this is a really big deal, and I think a lot of people are kind of missing it. But we got the $20,000 price level here. This will actually vary depending on which exchange you're looking at, but we did see Bitcoin actually getting above $20,000 when it broke its all-time high in 2020. But then there was that subsequent drop down. So not on Bitstamp here. It didn't break 20K on Bitstamp here. Different exchanges were more bullish or less bullish depending on even geographic region sometimes. But I think what's very, very clear is that we have seen these kind of spikes up to very, very important levels, followed by subsequent drops, and these don't have to be concerning, right? I mean, in this case, it literally took Bitcoin just another 2 weeks to break that all-time high, and then it went substantially higher. I mean, it just kind of left it in a path of dust. It doubled basically within the next, what was this? Yeah, it doubled within the next 3 weeks, right? I mean, it's just absolutely insane. So that happened back when we broke $20,000 for the first time ever. But then, take a look at what happened when we broke 10K for the first time ever, right? I mean, this was very, very, very similar price action to what we're seeing right now, and it's very much worth highlighting and bringing to your attention, because we've seen this before, and it really wasn't a big deal at all, right? I mean, here's Bitcoin kind of inching its way up to the very, very high $9,000 region. We pop above 10K, absolutely phenomenal. We get all the way up to 11,300, and obviously in current days, this would basically mean $111,000, which is, 10 times higher than the price that you're seeing on chart right now, on the screen right now. And so, it popped very, very high after getting that break above 10K, but that didn't last long. It had a pretty much equally quick, in fact, even more extensive drop downwards, had a nice recovery, dropped even lower, just consolidating, whatever. This is the shit that just scares people, right? I mean, it's these moves, like it drops down here, comes back up here, drops back down here, up here, back down here. People are just, selling up here, buying down here. I'm sorry. They're buying up here, selling down here, buying up here, selling down here, right? It's all about buying high and selling low for the noobs in this space. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly, I think, what's happening right now. Obviously, Bitcoin didn't need to worry about any of that. And then history continued to play out. And, Bitcoin didn't return back to that $10,000 level for, another couple of months. So, it was definitely a very, very impressive rally from this point onwards. And I think that it's well worth bringing into your attention now for $100,000 where we're at right now, because, I mean, a lot of people can start to get worried about this and think that actually, this is going to be more of a kind of significant macro top, or we're going to have to trend down for a long time. And you know what? If that happens, then good for all of us, because we're going to get much better entries on absolutely everything. And if your objective here is to make money, then that's probably going to be exciting to you. Of course, if your objective is just to get in a circle and pat each other on the back for holding XRP through 7 years of absolutely obliterated price action, and now being even at a lower ROI compared to absolutely everybody else in this space, then obviously you're probably not even on this YouTube channel, and you're probably not even particularly rooted in logic here, because this is something that we've seen before for Bitcoin at very similar price levels in terms of significance. And I just don't think that this has to be something particularly scary. Like it's like I said, if we do end up getting a bigger drop, it's actually going to be very good, and I do want to focus on that a little bit now, because we have been quite bullish so far in this YouTube video, but we don't have to be, because this is actually quite bearish. Obviously, the fact that we did manage to get above 100K and then we got rejected and now we're back down is not good. I think the only kind of hope that Bitcoin has right now is the fact that we are holding on to this level right now. But I mean, I wouldn't read into it too much. I mean, it's going to be very easy to shake the market, and like I said at the very beginning, just grab some liquidity back down here. If we grab liquidity here, return back to the mean, I think it's going to be very easy to push it down again. And obviously on this push, it could result in the one that ends up dropping quite hard. And the reason that all of this is really important is, if we just kind of zoom out and look at all of this price action stretching back to when we initially broke the all-time high over here, you know, there's absolutely no support that's been developed on this chart, right? We can take a look at the fixed range volume profile. And we can see where all of these spikes come in, basically showing us where Bitcoin activity has been taking place, where trading activity has been taking place. And I mean, you know, there's a little bit right here. We can draw this box right here. There's another little bit right here. You know, but I mean, there's really not a whole lot going on this chart. You know, and especially if Bitcoin were to lose this level's at about $91,000, $92,000. This is exactly where Bitcoin managed to bounce off today. And if we do lose this level, I mean, there's absolutely nothing for Bitcoin all the way down to $72,000, basically its previous all-time high. And I think this would be a phenomenal drop for Bitcoin. I mean, from this high all the way back down here, this is already a phenomenal 30% drop. I mean, it's really not that bad, right? I mean, we were literally, you know, just to put this in perspective, compared to where we are today, we were literally only trading here 30 days ago, right? I mean, you know, a little bit more than 30 days ago. So it's really not that bad at all, right? It's not a particularly you know, gruesome time frame at all. You know, we're only rewinding the clock by 30 days. We've already managed to break $100,000. So I think it's the best time to be getting that kind of pullback, because a lot of people on these kind of drops, if you start seeing Bitcoin dropping below 90K, even dropping below 80K, a lot of people are going to be saying that this thing is over. Peter Schiff is going to come out of the woodworks and start talking about how you know, Bitcoin is a Ponzi that's going back down to zero, and so on and so forth. And so it's going to really trigger all of those fear-based narratives, which you know, allow the market to drop down a little bit lower. And honestly, I think, you know, just to level with you guys, you know, we've been speed running through this video so far, but you know, I want to level with you guys for a second and talk about something that's really, really important, which, you know, honestly, nobody's really even focusing on, which is the fact that nobody has exposure to Bitcoin right now, right? Absolutely. Even though Bitcoin's dominance is quite high, as we've been predicting for a very, very long time on this YouTube channel. So shout out to those of you that have been subscribed to this YouTube channel. You've been getting all of this extremely accurate analysis around the clock, because it's very time sensitive. Even though we're seeing Bitcoin at these very, very high price levels, very, very high dominance levels, a lot of people don't actually have that much exposure to Bitcoin, right? A lot of people have been going for those kind of lottery shots in meme coins or dino coins as the new narratives, right? Basically old coins that, you know, have died, so to speak, for a very, very long time, now being revived and so on. So a lot of people are kind of really spread out across the altcoin market, but crucially not having particularly much Bitcoin exposure. It's one of the reasons that I think Bitcoin's dominance is going to shoot back up, because, you know, retail is not the winner almost every single time. You know, and actually, you know, one of the things that we've seen very, very, very clearly from data is that it's actually ETF buyers that are the biggest winners in this market right now, because they have experienced the biggest gain, especially in terms of dollars. Obviously, I mean, they're playing with the most money, but that's why they're naturally also in Bitcoin. And most importantly, most critically, it's the ETF buyers that are in, not retail, with regards to Bitcoin, right? Retail is much more spread out across those altcoins. And so, you know, I think it's just going to be another classic situation where these Bitcoins get washed out from retail back into institutional hands, which is what happens with all forms of money throughout all of time. It's clearly been happening with Bitcoin, you know, for as long as I've been in Bitcoin now, which is over 7 years, and it's probably going to keep on happening, right? So I think that's a really important thing to be keeping in mind. You know, absolutely nobody has exposure to Bitcoin compared to what it used to be, but a big demographic now that does have exposure are those, you know, white collar suit and tie fancy guys that just run laps around that run laps around the rest of us in this space, and it's very natural. And if you're able to kind of see that and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but if you're able to see that and recognize it, then you know, you might even be able to position yourself to make some money off it. But if we do bring it back to this fixed range volume profile, I think this is really, really important. It's given us a couple of very important levels. Let's drop a couple of lines here just to kind of illustrate what they are, and then we're going to go ahead and remove this fixed range volume profile, and we can see some very, very important levels that Bitcoin could be returning back down to. Obviously, we got the $67,000 price level, which is still my absolute favorite, and if we measure this from our all-time high down to this level, that's going to be a 35% drop. If Bitcoin falls all the way down to 56K, which is the value area low, that's going to be a 45% drop. I don't think Bitcoin's going to go down this low, but what I think is very, very interesting is that Bitcoin's rumored typical maximum drop, 40%, you know, does put it squarely at $60,000, which I also think is a very good level of support. I don't think we're going there, but if we do go there, it would be like Christmas coming early or maybe late, depends on how long we take to get down there. You know, but the other thing that I do want to show you is obviously just the Fibonacci retracements on this chart, right? Because now we have a pretty clear top, and, you know, it's a top that could stick around for a little bit. And if we do take a look at this particular Fibonacci, we'll look at a couple of them, but if we look at this particular one, we got a huge golden pocket of support sitting here at $67,000 to $70,000, which I think is perfect, absolutely perfect in terms of a zone of support. Exactly what you want to see. It makes a lot of sense. Every single other Fibonacci level on this chart, not particularly interesting to me, except for the 786 level, so I'm not super keen on this. If we draw it from where this rally really started to get crazy, we don't have any confluence lining up with these levels, but we do have the 6-minute golden pocket lining up with the $80,000 price level. I wouldn't read too much into it, other than the fact that this is a psychological zone of support, so, you know, that is worth what it's worth. But I think for the most part, just the fact that this 618 retracement, this 66 golden pocket, just lines up with such an amazing level already. I think that really tells us a lot about where this market could be going if it's going to have what I would call a complete correction, right? It doesn't need to have a correction at all. If it does have a correction, it doesn't need to be a complete correction. But if the correction does mature and if the correction goes deep, I wouldn't expect it to go further than $67,000 at this point in time. And I would hope that, if it does happen, it happens quickly so we can just get it out of the way and continue to move on. And let's take a look at traditional finance before we move back onto Bitcoin. I have a little bit more I want to talk to you about with Bitcoin, but I do want to look at traditional finance right now. It's looking very good, still standing at all-time highs, which is absolutely great. The dollar dropping down a little bit, but no problem at all for crypto on the whole. I think we're going to stop looking at the dollar for now because it doesn't seem super relevant for the rest of crypto. If we take a look at Solana, it's holding steady for a minute. It's already still trying to kind of get that breakout, but it hasn't quite managed to materialize yet. Solana against Bitcoin is doing well. We were talking about how this is an obvious buy on yesterday's live stream, and that has already managed to rise up by a couple of percentage points, which is pretty nice. If we look at Doge real quick, it is continuing to inch higher in this vertical accumulation. Nothing particularly interesting. Same for the Bitcoin chart. Binance coin right here has done incredibly well with some potential support back tests on the way, but I don't know, it might not even do that. Binance against Bitcoin is in a much worse position, but still actually looking pretty good, especially in terms of risk to reward. I was talking about how this is a great buy, and Binance against Bitcoin is already up by 4% since yesterday, so that's absolutely fantastic as well. Ethereum obviously doing very well against Bitcoin, now regaining a lot of its losses just from yesterday. Still approaching a very, very critical zone of resistance on this chart, and I wouldn't be optimistic at the zone of resistance. We haven't even reached there yet, which I think is a little bit concerning because a lot of other altcoins have reached very comparative macro Bitcoin resistance levels. Ethereum hasn't, so take that for what it's worth. I still think it's looking good. I still think I'm going to get better entries though. And then dominance itself for Bitcoin, it's just moving sideways a little bit. Clearly, the dominance, I think, is one of the big pictures that shows us that this is not a particularly scary setup on the chart. The dominance is showing us that actually people are still quite optimistic about where we are, and rightfully, because I think that as long as we hold, this $90,000 price level, we're basically in a sideways range that spans about 10K from 90 to 100, and I think that's actually pretty reasonable. Again, it's the $100,000 price level, a big thing that I think a lot of people are missing out on, and that I've been saying in my most recent live stream, is that Bitcoin, within just a space of, 2.5 weeks managed to rally up by 50%, which is just absolutely fucking enormous. It's absolutely crazy. But, if we take a look at it from this low, to the absolute all-time high that Bitcoin managed to set, this is a 109% gain, and that itself only took 4 months for Bitcoin to pull off. So in 4 months, Bitcoin doubled. I mean, that is just, again, I like to look at this in perspective of global assets by market cap because this just puts things in perspective really, really well. Bitcoin is a bloody huge asset right now. 50% ago, Bitcoin was worth about $900 billion, let's say, and that would have only put Bitcoin down at number 14, basically number 13, somewhere around here in terms of global assets by market cap, which means it was already absolutely huge, and now it's doubled, and it's even more absolutely huge now. I think that this was a ridiculously extreme quick rally. We were expecting that. We weren't taken by surprise. We weren't surprised by that. And the reason that we weren't surprised by that is because we recognized that this was 7 to 8 months of consolidation, basically a corrective price wave here that lasted a very, very long period of time inside of a huge uptrend, inside of a very macro positive environment. And obviously the big breakout only happened when Trump got elected too. So there's that entire political narrative. So a lot of factors lining up to give us that big Bitcoin price move. And I'm not surprised at all that it happened. But now that it has happened, I think it makes a lot of sense that Bitcoin has a little bit of time to kind of cool off, regain itself before continuing to press on higher. And I think this is a really important thing that's worth highlighting just for a little bit longer in this YouTube video right now, because if we take a look at Bitcoin's price action since it hits this all-time high at $99,000, it's basically been sideways for the next kind of 2 weeks here, which is a pretty good time frame to kind of go sideways, but it can definitely go sideways for a lot longer and still be totally fine. And like I said, I think the invalidation is going to be this $92,000, $91,000 price zone here. If we do drop below it, there are interim psychological support levels, but like I said, nothing particularly big. I would be expecting 72 and 67 as the two main zones of support. Zones of support for Bitcoin. Is it possible that Bitcoin front runs both of these and just bottoms at 78 or something? Yes, absolutely, but you would have to have some really weird fringe tools of analysis to kind of predict that, and those tools by nature of being weird and fringe would not be particularly consistent, so I wouldn't be using them at a time like this. And so that's kind of my take on the market. I think that if we manage to sweep the high, then we're looking pretty good. And honestly, it's not even this high that we need to sweep. I think that the high we still need to sweep is basically going to be like 99K basically. realistically, I mean, anything above 99k, we're probably looking pretty good. I mean, we could maybe raise it up to the previous all-time high here at about 99.9, but you know, basically getting above this yellow line here, I think would send Bitcoin significantly higher, and I don't expect that it's going to be a small one next time. I think that now that that liquidity has been washed out, you know, we're going to have a pretty good chance to actually rise significantly higher than where we are right now, and obviously that's probably going to give rise to a lot of these altcoins. Maybe not now, maybe we do see Bitcoin's dominance continue to rip a little bit, because that is what we saw yesterday when Bitcoin surpassed $100,000, but I think very, very soon those opportunities will come into play. And the best thing about all of that stuff is you get to trade this stuff for free with the links down below in the description below that like and subscribe button. So if you are enjoying this content, and if you want a little bit of extra free cash to just kind of throw back into the market, it's well worth checking out. Like I said, all you have to do is just trade using these links, just start depositing and trading, and these exchanges will give you more free money that you can trade with, and any profits you generate are going to be yours to keep, which is super, super cool. Obviously, only check it out if you're not from a restricted region. Bybit also has the Bybit card promotion, which is absolutely sick, and there's also going to be a link in the description for you guys to get a free $500 position on Bybit, which is a very, very cool offer that they used to run I think earlier this year, and I did ask them to start it up again because you guys loved it so much. So those of you that are signing up brand new to Bybit, you can actually get a free $500 position. I believe it's on Bitcoin, and you know, you can just, yeah, whatever happens with it is going to be your money to keep. So really, really cool stuff there. Hope you've enjoyed this video. You know what to do if you have. Smash up those likes, double check that you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.